So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. I am Audrey Asson. I am the GEO Blue Planet European Coordinator here at Mercator Océan International as part of the European Commission EU Fortune of Ops, FPI. I will be your moderator today, and we'll be talking about the GEO and how we can interact with the UN Decade. So really, this session is about fostering synergy between GEO activities and the UN Decade. The United Nations created the Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development from 2021 to 2030. It would launch earlier this year. It is fostering transdisciplinary efforts to reverse the decline in the ocean health that we've been observing for the last decades. It will bring, or it brings already, ocean stakeholders worldwide towards all sustainable development goals. We are right now at the early stages of the decade, and I think it's really the best time for GEO to come together and to provide a contribution to the decade. So this session will be the beginning of a series of discussions to converge on that GEO contribution to the decade. Our session today, parallel session today, will be divided into three. First of all, I will be presenting the UN Decade, and then Douglas Craig from the GEO Secretariat will be presenting the different GEO activities and partnerships. Then we will have 5 speakers presenting 6 different UN Decade programs that were endorsed earlier this month. And then we'll move on to a panel discussion where Douglas, Frank, and Emily will be joining our speakers. So first of all, the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. It is coordinated by the IOC, the Intergovernmental Commission of the UNESCO. Its motto sums it up in the end: is the science we want for the ocean the science we need for the ocean we want. The decade is a convening framework not only for scientists but also actors from government, industry, and philanthropy to collectively align research, investments, and initiatives around a common set of challenges. So what the big question to me is, what is the ocean we want? And the UN Decade came up with 7 outcomes to answer this question. So first of all, a clean ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a predicted ocean, a safe ocean, a sustainably harvested and productive ocean, a transparent ocean, and finally an inspiring and engaging ocean. And I think for all GEO initiatives, you can find here, like what you're doing answering one of these outcomes. And to answer this need of the ocean, we need to promote ocean sciences that needs to be transformative, so groundbreaking, some changing the way we actually work with ocean sciences. We also need ocean sciences that leads to solutions for sustainable development by linking generators and users of knowledge, especially for early warning systems and so on. But we also need some ocean science that incites behavior change at the institutional and individual level. So the Ocean Decade came up with some decade objectives, which are to identify required knowledge for sustainable development, to generate comprehensive knowledge and understanding the ocean, and increase the use of ocean knowledge. To do so, they came up with decade actions, and the first ones were the programs, and more than 60 programs and contributions have been endorsed on June 8th. We will have today 6 of them presented: ForeSea, Predict, the Digital Twin Oceans, the Marine Life 2030, and OPSCOD and Observing Together. A key aspect of the decade is, I think, the action that GEO can foster. And the GEO Executive Committee, the last one, called on the GEO community to contribute to and support the Ocean Decade with GeoBlue Planet leading the engagement with the IOC in close coordination with the relevant GEO flagship initiative community activities to contribute to the delivery of the ocean decade. So the little graph shows here the ocean we have with the ocean we need. And you can see that you have GeoBlue Planet, but also all the different geo activities going towards the ocean we want. So I think this is a great time for transition. Doug, if you can turn on your camera. And thank you very much. I will stop sharing.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Audrey. It's a pleasure to be here in this session to talk about the potential contributions of GEO towards the ocean decade. And as Audrey laid out, there's a number of areas in the ocean decade where we could, as a community, be contributing. I think that our greatest arena for supporting the ocean decade is in response to these decade challenges that Audrey just showed us. So just to go through these quickly, understand and beat marine pollution, protect and restore ecosystems and biodiversity, sustainably feed the global population, develop a sustainable and equitable ocean economy, unlock ocean-based solutions to climate change, increase community resilience to ocean hazards, expand the global ocean observing system, create a digital representation of the ocean, skills, knowledge, and technology for all, and change humanity's relationship with the ocean. So if you, those of you who are quite familiar with GEO will recognize activities that correspond with almost every single one of these decade challenges. And so I'm going to focus in the rest of my presentation here on two of those activities from our GEO work program. And that's not to say by any means that's the totality of what GEO is doing, but it's just a couple of examples that can illustrate support that can come from GEO and the convening power that GEO can bring. So many of you are probably familiar with the Blue Planet Initiative. And the Blue Planet Initiative has a mission to advance and exploit synergies among the many observational programs that are devoted to ocean and coastal waters. It's also looking at improving engagement with a variety of users for enhancing the timeliness and quality and range of services delivered. And it's looking to raise awareness of the societal benefits of ocean observations at the public and policy levels. And it works to do this by promoting the collection of observations, processing data information, and linking this information with societal needs. And as you can see here on the right-hand side, there are 7 thematic working groups on marine litter, on sargassum issues, oil spills, waterborne diseases, fisheries, eutrophication, and coastal flooding, wave force. So what Blue Planet is trying to do is to bridge the ocean gap, let's say, between the engagement priorities over here on the left side, which are the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, with all of the various components who are providing not only Earth observations, but marine observations, and then transforming those into tools that can answer some of these issues. And over here again on the right-hand side, the areas in which the Blue Planet is most active is in putting together information hubs and toolkits, helping with the development of indicators, and then putting together best practices white papers. The stakeholder engagement portion of Blue Planet is something that is quite strong. And in addition to workshops on various topics related to marine observations and how to use them, such as you can see here on coastal flooding in reef-lined island coasts, or else coastal climate and Earth observation services for small islands, and then for tuna fisheries. Blue Planet also organizes events or participates in them. For example, Blue Planet was a part of the Marine Debris and Sargassum Site event at the All Atlantic 2021 conference. In particular, their GEO Blue Planet, supported by EU for Ocean OBS, hosted 2 events that organized in collaboration with key project partners and working group contributors the effort to bring together experts and stakeholders to present and discuss challenges for addressing sargassum and marine debris across the Atlantic Ocean. And these are serious issues affecting the blue economy in terms of fisheries and tourism for many areas in the Caribbean. And then Blue Planet also participated in an Ocean Visions 2021 summit towards a global ecosystem for ocean solutions. The summit brought together many professionals and experts, and there was in particular, a early career ocean professional side event that discussed ocean plastic solutions with UNEP. And during the session, UNEP presented the Global Partnership on Marine Litter platform, which will be an open source multi-stakeholder information and data tool that compiles different resources and connects stakeholders and integrates on marine litter to inform decision making. So you can see that Blue Planet is active in engaging with stakeholders and working to bring marine information to those stakeholders to inform decisions. So Blue Planet has been in existence for a number of years within GEO, and it is probably one of the primary vehicles that can be utilized to support the UN decade. We also have an activity that's called MBON, the Marine Biodiversity Observation Network. And the Marine BON is a thematic specialty area of GeoBON, the Group on Earth Observations Biodiversity Observation Network, that represents a global initiative composed of regional networks of scientists, resource managers, and end users working to integrate data from existing long-term programs to improve our understanding of changes and connections between marine biodiversity and ecosystem functions. And so you can see here on this slide the various areas in which they are working to bring together these networks to tackle issues related to environmental conditions in terms of acidity, temperature, salinity, and so forth. Also data analysis and modeling for forecasting, information systems, how to deal with data and archiving standards, stakeholder communication and management, ecosystem functioning, and biodiversity, species, and abundance. And of course, in the middle here are the various products that MBON is working to bring together in response to the challenges in each of these areas. So just to kind of recap here, MBON is providing biological and environmental data collected by multiple independent programs into an integrated web-based tool that informs scientists, resource managers, educators, and all stakeholders about the state of marine biodiversity and how it's changing. So that's another activity of the GEO Work Program, again, under the aegis of GeoBON, but Marine BON would also be a very good vehicle to tackle some of the issues related to the challenges of the ocean decade. Now, I'm just, in the time that I have, I've just skimmed the surface of things that are potential, or activities that are potential vehicles to address the ocean decade. Here, I've put a list of activities or communities within the GEO, within the GEO Work Program that are also contributing to aspects of these challenges that we've seen for the ocean decade. In particular, if we take a look up here on the upper right-hand side, we'll see that there's another initiative called Digital Earth Africa that is working to provide a routine and reliable operational services using Earth observations to deliver decision-ready products and enable policymakers, scientists, and the private sectors to address environmental and economic changes across the African continent. But it's not only the continent, they're also looking at support for development along the coasts. There's a coastal portion of Digital Earth Africa that's going to be developing a coastline analysis tool. And this, of course, is critical with given the amount that coastal urban areas are anticipated to grow over the next few decades. So that's another area. And then down here on the bottom right-hand side is CEOS Coast, which is also going to, this is a fairly new initiative within CEOS, the Committee on Earth Observation Satellites, to look at the impacts of land to sea and also sea to land. And there are a couple of pilot projects that are going to be undertaken in this framework. And CEOS Coast has already been accepted or has submitted a proposal under the call for support to the Ocean Decade that has been accepted. And so that's something that we're really excited about. So there's some more things. And then we have the regional geos, the AmeriGeo, AfriGeo, AOGeo, and EuroGeo. These are looking at regional commonalities and ways of tackling issues across those regions. So those would be another vehicle that we can use. In the middle here, we have the Pacific Islands Advisory Group, which is a relatively new group that advises our executive committee on issues that pertain to the Pacific Island regions. There's the Geo-Indigenous Alliance, which is also a fairly new entity within GEO that is taking an indigenous perspective of what it means to share data, what is done with that data, and concerns for the indigenous populations. Then we have a number of other work program activities that have been around for quite a while. Geo Aqua Watch, which is concerned with water quality, both inland and coastal areas. There's the Geo Wetlands that, of course, is looking at preservation and monitoring of wetlands, and that would include estuaries and topics such as mangroves. And then GeoHealth is also a community of practice which is concerned with waterborne diseases and how those might be monitored and forecasted. So this is, again, just a broad overview of many of the initiatives within the GEO work program that we can bring together in terms of convening power that GEO is known for to tackle some upcoming opportunities to support the Ocean Decade. I won't stop there. I'll also point out that GEO has got over 135 participating organizations. And of those participating organizations, there are a number of them that are specifically or have components that are ocean related. As you can see over here on the right side, there are many United Nations agencies that are interested in ocean matters and are participating organizations within GEO. Over here on the other side on the left, you see more either research or operational entities that work towards various aspects of providing information for oceans or for forecasting. And POGO, for example, the Partnership for Observation of the Global Ocean, is one of the founding members of Blue Planet, and Mercator Ocean, which we just heard from Audrey. SEON, Sustaining Arctic Observing Networks, they're of course interested in ocean observations as it pertains to the Arctic areas. So we have not only activities in the GEO work program, we have many partners in addition to our over 100 member governments within GEO that we can turn to for support in terms of the Ocean Decade. And so with that, I thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back to you, Audrey.
Thank you very much for a great overview of all the GEO initiatives and work that is done within GEO. Emily, if you could share your screen now so we can move on to the next part of the session, which is the presentation of the 6 different programs endorsed by the UN Decade. I've seen we already have a question in the chat, so please feel free, everyone, to ask questions in the chat. We'll have the panel discussion. Afterwards, I have prepared a few questions. But of course, we'll also take questions from the audience. Emily, wasn't there a slide before this one?
Oh, this is the version I had downloaded.
Oh, there was a newer one. Maybe I'll just share my screen then, if you don't mind. All right, I think it's, yeah. So I will be the one switching slides for people. All right. All right, can you all see my screen all right?
Perfect, Audrey. Very good.
Thank you, Martin. All right, so we are moving on to the next part of the meeting. We will have Eric Chassinier from Florida State University to present the ForeSea program. We will have Vili Kurafalu from University of Miami presenting the Predict program. We will have Martin Bisbeck from GEOMAR presenting the digital twin oceans. And then we will have Gabriele Canonico from NOAA presenting the Marine Life 2030. And last but not least, Emma Heslop from the IOC, and she will be presenting 2 programs, the OBSCode and the Observing Together. So Eric, if you may turn on your camera and your mic, it's the floor is yours. Eric, are you with us?
I don't see him on the participant list. Maybe he got kicked out.
Okay. Ooh, okay. Well, we'll just jump over. That's fine. And we can start with Vili.
Okay, thank you. I will be presenting Predict, Observing and Predicting the Global Coastal Ocean. Next, please. I co-lead this program with Nadia Pinardi from the University of Bologna in Italy and Joaquin Tintoré from SOCIB and IMEDE in Spain. Next, please. Predict's main theme is to revolutionize the global coastal ocean observing and forecasting, co-designing the needed infrastructure and offering open and free access to coastal information. Next, please. We have 3 high-level objectives. First, a predicted global coastal ocean. Second, upgrade to a fit-for-purpose oceanographic information infrastructure. And third, co-design and implementation of an integrated coastal ocean observing and forecasting system that adheres to best practices and standards, and is also designed as a global framework, taking advantage of the diverse coastal systems within a global coastal ocean, and implemented locally, recognizing that we need to really take care of the local needs of stakeholders, of the needs of the local stakeholders. There are several transformative aspects in Predict. Next. First of all, Predict redefines the concept of the global coastal ocean. It takes coastal to mean, one moment, it's okay, just leave it, thank you. It takes coastal to mean from the near shore all the way through the shelf and including the part of the open ocean that interacts with the shelf, and also going near shore and extending inland, covering estuaries and deltas and also the so-called urban ocean in and around coastal cities and coastal settlements. Next, please. Innovation in multidisciplinary observational technologies and fit-for-purpose observing system for this global coastal ocean. Next. and also innovation in numerical modeling, which covers data simulation, data science tools, new technologies and methods, rather like machine learning, data learning. Next. And also to provide coastal solution services. And two more, thank you. A virtual information digital infrastructure, next, that together with the global coastal ocean network will provide open and free access for the coastal information. Next, please. Coast Predict has been co-designed with GOUS. It is one of the three programs that GOUS integrates. The other two will be presented by Emma Heslop very soon. Just briefly, it is Observing Together that connects ocean observers and the communities they serve, and Ocean Observing Co-Design that focuses in creating an international capacity toward a truly integrated ocean observing system. Next, please. Coast Predict and GeoBlue Planet can work in several aspects. One is through the entire value chain that both really serve. This is a simplified example just to highlight that we need this integration back and forth between the basic information infrastructure, and some examples here from Coast Predict are to improve the understanding of coastal processes, to integrate open coastal systems, to have better coastal forecasts that are impact-based and under best practices, and from the other side to connect with downstream solutions and services. Examples are for disaster risk reduction, solutions for climate change mitigation and adaptation, to connect to policy and management and provide capacity building. Next, thank you.
Thank you, Vili. And now we'll switch on to the digital twins of the ocean of Martin Bisbeck.
Yes, thank you, Audrey. Thanks, colleagues, to allow me to present here a very short summary of what the ambition is of the digital twin of the ocean's DITTO project. So next slide, maybe, Audrey. So the next slide gives you a summary slide of where the ambition is. On the one hand, we have observations, and I think Doug mentioned a few of them. It's the Global Ocean Observing System. It's the satellite components to that that you see on the left here. So it's the various type of in situ and remotely sensing information that comes from the ocean, which is so valuable for us. And then this information gets into the data sphere, shall we say. And the data sphere has this is an assembly process of all the observed observation, but it's also a possibility to use models of various types. This could be Earth system models, ocean circulation models, ocean ecosystem models, but also maybe more modern AI machine learning types of analysis of the data. And then these data then somehow needs to get used by the community, by the stakeholders, and we can use increasingly digital formats, cloud-based systems, and so on to make that information available to the stakeholders, the knowledge holders. So I think this is nothing new. This is certainly a value chain that I think many of the ocean activities has, but the digital twins offer a specific opportunity to take that approach into another way of thinking about it. So the next slide explains that a bit better. So what you see on the right is some text, some definition of what we, the community, thinks these digital twins are. So digital twins, in a more technical term, are fine-grained visualizations of physical objects or digital representation of visual objects and systems, and they've been widely used in engineering realms. So things like engine optimization, port management, airplane design, and the like. So in engineering, a digital twin is a very well-known and well-used and long-standing view. But the concept of digital twinning is gaining momentum also in earth and ocean sciences. So there's talk about building digital twins of the earth system or the ocean system here in our particular case. And I think it's a particular and also maybe intuitive way to bundle and provide easy access to the marine data models and simulations. And the particular aspect is that a well-constructed digital twin of the ocean, and there'll be many, not just one, will enable a wide range of users to interact with the digital assets, so all the information that we have to explore current and future scenarios, especially related to human interactions with the ocean. And the one big difference between a forecast system, like a weather or ocean forecast or a HAB forecast, tsunami forecast, in digital twinning, there's one step that you see on this schematic diagram on the bottom left there, which is interventions. So what digital twins allow you to explore, test, and see what would happen if we do this intervention? So you can imagine in climate that's very known, we have CO2 coming to the atmosphere, high emission, low emission scenarios. We ask the question, how will the ocean react with sea level rise, warming, acidification? We can think of it, if you think about sea level rise, about protection of the coastal system, the what if question is, should we do nature-based solution, build dams or dikes or things like that? So a digital twin is always outcome-oriented and focuses on a particular solution orientation or intervention that humans want to do. So it's really parging that. So DITTO takes this concept into the marine sphere. We think it's fairly new. It's not that people haven't done it, but they don't think about it that way. And our ambition in DITTO is to establish a common understanding, first of digital twins, but then a community, a framework to share the building blocks, the elements, the data, the information that really enable local communities, stakeholders, decision makers to build their digital twin for the issue that they need information on ocean sustainable development. And in that way, benefit from all the data that we have, but really enable them to do precise decision-making, marine spatial planning, ship routing, things like that in that specific frame. So it's a very exciting program. We have about 40 experts from around the globe, from China, from India, from the United States, Europe, Russia, Africa, Cape Verde as a small island state are all there. And I think it's very exciting to share this new way of thinking about the ocean, like by this digital twinning mechanism. And that's what DITTO is aiming to do to bring this forward. We're certainly responding directly to challenge number 4 that Doug Cripe made it. That's a digital representation of the ocean. Thank you very much, Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Let's move on to Gabriele, if she's connected and if her mic is working.
Yes, I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Marine Life 2030 today. The effort is quite complex with many components and broad partnerships, but our focus is summarized by the text you see here, building global knowledge of marine life for local action. We've listed some of the core partners on this slide, but there are many others contributing. There are new partners joining all the time. And among the first steps in our planning is to strengthen and grow our engagement with new communities towards our vision to establish a globally coordinated system to deliver actionable, transdisciplinary knowledge of ocean life to those who need it, promoting human well-being, sustainable development, and ocean conservation. Next slide, please. So clearly people depend on biodiversity. OECD estimates the ocean economy value will be over $3 trillion in 2030. We're aware of society's high dependence on the ocean to support lives and livelihoods across the globe. And this includes, but it's not limited to, communities that depend on fish as their primary source of protein and sustenance. Marine biodiversity is at the heart of healthy ecosystems and sustainable use of living resources, but it's underrepresented in global marine observing, and all of this really motivates our efforts. Next slide, please. The ocean is home to over 200,000 species that we know of, but it's estimated that 1 million more species are yet to be discovered. And since most marine species and ecosystems remain unstudied, management and global observing efforts have typically focused on proxies like temperature and topography rather than direct measurements of marine life. Existing data on ocean species are insufficient, and where they do exist, they're not coordinated and they're largely inaccessible. In addition, marine biodiversity science is poorly linked to the people who want and need the information about their living resources. Marine Life 2030 will unite communities around the world to co-develop solutions to these challenges, transforming ocean science and democratizing its benefits. Next slide, please. We are committed to co-develop and co-deliver solutions to these challenges. It will take a community approach if we're to be successful in achieving our vision, and it will require strong linkages among GEO, the Global Ocean Observing System, the Ocean Biodiversity Information System, other UN partners, and key public, private, and research groups. The approach includes convening stakeholders to chart the course together and to implement equitable management, long-term coordination, and financing of global marine life observations and applications. It means leveraging emerging technologies and innovation to democratize and share marine life information using approaches such as omics, acoustics, imaging, artificial intelligence, and building a sequence-based ocean biocode of global marine species, which is part of the Marine Life 2030 effort. It requires systematic integration of biodiversity into the global ocean observing system through establishing and promoting interoperable biodiversity standards and working across disciplines. And we must apply our enhanced knowledge of marine life to real solutions that are developed together to inform conservation and sustainable use, as I said, of marine life by stakeholders in every coastal nation. Next slide, please. So we look forward to the opportunity for dialogue with any among you and with this group assembled here today. I've shared here the link to the Marine Life 2030 proposal, so you can learn more of the details, and please consider joining us in advancing this important program. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Maybe you can also put the link, if it's not done yet, in the chat so people can have access to it. Thank you. All right, and we'll move on to Emma and the GOUS programs. Are you with us, Emma?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so the floor is yours. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Audrey, and thank you very much for inviting me to give a kind of a high-level view of the global ocean observing system and some key programs to support the ocean decade. So next slide, please. So you might recognize this one from Vili's presentation. So GOUS worked really quite hard coming up to the sort of the start of the ocean decade and put significant effort into developing sort of and working with other communities such as the Coast Predict community to develop these three kind of key overarching programs. And these are Ocean Observing Co-Design, Observing Together, and Coast Predict. And we really see the observations and the prediction that comes under GOUS as really being at the heart of the ocean decade, and that many meeting many of the challenges and achieving the outcomes will depend upon data from sort of within the GOUS system. So we took the time to really think about what would help transform GOUS and also be transformational for the decade. And these are three key programs here. And I'm going to speak about Ocean Observing Co-Design and Observing Together. Coast Predict has already been covered by Vili. So next slide, please. But I should say that GOUS is obviously not doing this alone. It really does depend upon many great partnerships. And the Ocean Decade has really been almost like an accelerator of getting some of these partnerships underway, and that is very, very welcome. So it really will require, as you'll see, great and close partnership with the modelling community, with the ForeSea program, for example. Also, the digital twins of the ocean that Martin's just spoken about. This will be perhaps a future driver of how we look at the observing system and people's needs. So important there. Ocean practices which sort of another co-GOUS program will run under much of what we do. And then there are, from within the community, Argo 2030, DEUS, Oasis, Global Ghost Ship, many community-driven projects which will be interacted with or a part of this, and including Marine Life 2030. So it's more a community of practice. And I think that there is a kind of a need to work on our coordination in this space. And this is something that we should think about. Next slide, please. So to kind of give you a flavor for Ocean Observing Co-Design and then Observing Together. So for Ocean Observing Co-Design, some of the key challenges that we're trying to address is that, we really, to achieve the challenge of the ocean decade, we need fit for purpose ocean information. And this really involves in working more closely with user stakeholders, as we've also seen recognized in other presentations. But much of our current observing system has perhaps been built around some more specific scientific questions and the capabilities of different platforms. And we need to be able to look across the whole of the system and set priorities based around the capability and the impact. And this isn't just observing, but this is also linked into our ability to forecast. Next slide, please. So the aim is really to look at ocean observing co-design, transforming our ocean observing system assessment and design process. So to develop a well-designed, user-focused and driven co-design process. And this will happen with the stakeholders and with the modeling community. And we really intend to work closely with the modeling community. This is almost it is a co-design project. And if we come out at the end of the decade without those close links, I think we will have failed. And so the aim is really to build a process infrastructure and tools for ocean observing co-design. And these tools will be scalable so that they can be used at a global, but also a local level. And a core concept, perhaps, which might be interesting to the GEO community is it will evolve through use area exemplars. So looking at, say, for example, extreme event forecasting or carbon budgets, or maybe the reinsurance industry, taking projects associated with these areas and stakeholders and looking at how our system is performing and what will be required into the future. And this may be a sort of a potential area of projects in cooperation. Next slide, please. So observing together. This is again looking at integration and transformation, but taking a slightly different pathway, really saying that another challenge we face is that many communities around the world are unable to access ocean data in a way that's useful or enables them to make informed decisions. And you can see the connection of themes with Coast Predict here as well. And they often struggle to see the value of investing in ocean observation. So the aim is really to help transform ocean data access, but at a community scale, by connecting the ocean observers and the communities they serve. Next slide, please. And around some of the sort of GEO working group areas, I sort of, maybe saw some ideas and connections here. So the aim here is really to leverage, the expertise within the global ocean observing system and take on community scale projects, bringing in the expertise, but also co-designing what's required to transform the ocean data access for those communities. And really at the same time ensuring that no data gets lost, that through these community scale projects we understand, we can replicate them in other parts of the world, but also have all of the data flowing into global systems and probably out to the digital twins as well. So next slide, please. So combining these various sort of transformation for GOUS and the Ocean Decade projects together, we aim to sort of have a big raft of impacts and benefits, but I won't go into them because I think we might pick up some questions in these areas. So I'll leave that here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. I will go back to Eric's presentation if he's back with us, maybe.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Okay, I will. Here we are. Okay. The floor is yours, Eric.
Yes, sorry for dropping out.
No worries.
ForeSea, the tagline is the ocean prediction capacity of the future. Next slide, please. So the reason I put the 7 outcome back here is that one of them is a predicted ocean, which is what ForeSea is all about. Next slide, please. So the vision of ForeSea is a strong international coordination and community building of the ocean prediction capacity of the future. So the lead institution is the Ocean Predict, and co-chaired by Fraser Davidson, Vinay, and I. The overarching goal are to improve the science behind ocean prediction, its capacity, efficacy, use, and impact. Also to build a seamless ocean information value chain from observation to end users for economic and societal impact. So in summary, make ocean prediction science more impactful and relevant. Next slide, please. So the transformative and beyond business as usual things that ForeSea is aiming at pushing forward. Maybe the first bullet is really what we are after: democratization of ocean information to enable a more impactful engagement. creation of an effective and sustainable operational oceanography ecosystem environment that is responsive to the user need, and the establishment of a framework for operational oceanography that enables scientists and stakeholders to engage and collaborate with all components of the value chain and the UN decade programs that are associated with this communication, and enhancements of communication and the impact of relevance of ocean prediction. Right now, you have a lot of national centers, various places where ocean predictions are made available, but they are not easily accessible. They are not located in one place and everything. So some of the challenges are going to regroup and being able to communicate to a very diverse group of stakeholders the information that is available to the public in general. Next slide, please. And this is another ocean decade slide, but the main thing and the main goal is try to contribute to the capacity development. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now, I can exit my thing. Yes, okay. I will stop sharing if everyone on the panel can turn on the camera, and we will start the discussion. I will first ask questions to Emily and Frank, and then we'll move on to short questions to the speakers that we heard today. So the first question is for Emily. How will GeoBlue Planet provide support to the UN Decade Initiative, and how can other geo communities participate in it?
Thank you, Audrey. So within the GeoBlue Planet, we have discussed that we could support engagement in the decade across the GEO work program. As Doug mentioned, there are a lot of activities that have the potential to contribute to some of the decade programs. I'd say that we are in a beginning phase of trying to discuss with the decade stakeholders how best GEO can contribute. One thought we had would be to support coordination or implementation of some of these decade programs. So there have been a lot that were already proposed and accepted that have very challenging remits. So that's something that we're looking to get feedback from the decade program. So we want to hear how we can be helpful and what would be needed from the GEO community. We could also down the line submit a formal program activity for GEO, but at this point we were really interested in hearing from the community what the Ocean Decade programs and other stakeholders think GEO could best contribute to the decade.
Thank you, Emily. We'll move on to Frank, because at the same time as the Ocean Decade, the UN Ocean Decade, we have the UN Restoration Decade. So Frank, what synergies supported by the GEO can be explored with the UN Restoration Decade that runs parallel to the UN Ocean Decade?
Thank you for bringing this up. As you mentioned, the Ocean Decade is running in parallel with the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And so we have focused a lot on the Ocean Decade at the moment. So we need to find how we support the other communities that are trying to do restoration. And I think GEO can help us all by first getting everything that we just talked about organized and getting us to talk to each other. One of the problems that we have in terms of restoration is that there are no global agreements on targets for marine habitat restoration. The terrestrial community does have such targets for land. In the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, has opened the dialogue for having marine conservation be part of the global biodiversity conservation. And so the agencies that are involved in the Decade for Restoration are the UN Environment, UNEP, and FAO, and it would be very good for GEO and the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission to work together with the community to support that. So UNEP has a report, Becoming #Generation Restoration, that calls on countries to develop ambitious restoration goals for the sea. And so that's one place we can support. So the other place, of course, is as the Ocean Decade generates results, some of these can be targeted to support restoration activities and monitoring how restoration, if restoration is successful. So I think bringing all the groups together that you just talked about under one roof and having us talk to each other would be one major contribution.
Thank you, Frank. And I forgot to introduce you as the co-chair of MBON that we've heard a lot before. I will move on to Emma. My question is, how do you plan to involve local communities and especially indigenous knowledge holders in your program?
So we have some local communities already involved. These would be through projects and contacts that we have. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, how do we reach out further? And you know, as GOUS is delighted to have these projects, programs endorsed, but the work really starts here, right? We have to bring all of these great ideas to life, and so I think it's step by step. We have in the planning group sort of a number of people who are involved with various communities at different stages of being ready to move forward. And sort of stake a commitment in creating a project. So it's going to be around project-based. I am hoping in one sense or another that we could attract something like some philanthropic support so that we could co-invest, but you know, we have to go out into the big wide world and see if that's possible. But there are many, you know, WMO is looking at various financing mechanisms, so it's not, you know, beyond the realm of possibility. And with respect to your question on indigenous groups, I think that the design of the program in terms of being around communities and responding to those community needs, I would hope would speak to being able to work better with indigenous peoples. It's not around sort of, you know, outside forces, so to speak, saying this is what you do. It's about bringing expertise to those communities and making that appropriate. I would also say that with the co-leads, Molly Powers and Kim Curry, we have people from New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, and also with a GOUS co-chair from Canada with Anya White, all of whom have different experience of Indigenous communities and where some of those dialogues are going. So I really would anticipate that would help. But yeah, I saw that in the early presentation that there's a Geo-Indigenous Alliance, and this may be a great connection point. But I take that away as perhaps reaching out and involving that group in some way in the governance mechanism to help with the design of how we move forward. So
I was going to offer to facilitate interaction with the Geo-Indigenous Alliance. So
I think it'd be a great connection.
Yeah, thank you. I will move on to Eric, if Eric is still with us. What processes will you put in place to ensure that the ocean value chain that you described is designed to answer the end user needs for economic and societal benefits?
Yeah, so right now what you have is a lot of national center doing ocean prediction all over the world, and some are more and some less engaged with various stakeholders. But from the public at large, it's a very confusing environment to see, you know, where should I go, where should I get that information? So one of the goals of ForeSea is really to assemble in one location and better communicate the capacity that we currently have and see how synergy can be developed between those various centers and help the various small nations or countries that don't have yet that capacity to take advantage of it. And so that's where we see GEO and GeoBlue Planet, especially to identify maybe the specific areas that ForeSea should focus on and help us, you know, communicate. Communication is really central to the main goal of ForeSea.
Yes, thank you. And we're already planning on collaborating with ForeSea, and I think it's gonna be a great plan. We're gonna have great plans moving forward with Ocean Predict and so on. I will move on now to Martin. How do you plan to provide capacity development in accesses, manipulating, analyzing, and visualizing your digital twins?
Yeah, Audrey, very simple question. Actually, it's a great question. I'm very thankful for it, because DITTO is very much about building capacity and capabilities from around the globe. Quite often we talk about capacity building almost like a north-south sort of gradient there. But in digital twinning, this is new to all of us. So in many ways, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to build and share best practice from around the globe. So our first work is sharing expertise from those folks who already have some digital twins of the ocean up and running. There's a few. And it is really very much building out that capability and capacity in the academic community on the one hand, but actually the capability and capacity is much more readily done in the private sector at this point, or in the engineering community. So there's new communities, but some of them link very well to GEO. For example, GEO has very strong linkages and credibility in data and sharing data around the community. Now, digital twins depend upon what we call a data lake. So that data lake needs to be shared. So that's clear. But GEO also has connectivity to IEEE, the engineers, and these are the expert, the data scientists that are, without them, we will not get really functional and effective digital twins. But Audrey, we also have already connection to the gaming industry. So people who build games, Ubisoft as one example, and they have these data engines, which are extremely helpful on the visualization side of things. So what I think is the beauty of this digital twin enterprise is this is not our typical GOUS, Geo Blue Planet core communities expertise. This is also new for us. And so it's very clear that this capacity and capability building means us as much as it means others, which I find very exciting. And it's also now allows us to really build these capabilities as equitable around the planet. I like very much many of the comments that Emma made in that regard. And the one thing I think that you're already doing with this discussion here today is that for digital twins of the ocean to be successful, we need all the other programs to somehow be connected to that. And we're very much welcome to that. And I wonder whether that is some of the facilitation that GEO with this group and Geo Blue Planet and more generally can do to really help with this connectivity between the various programs and see how we can really accomplish our specific goals and targets that we have, but together, right? Like Emma, observing together, I think really getting these programs together. And I do think that GEO has, and Geo Blue Planet in particular, has a particular convening role and an opportunity for us to share. For example, I already learned something which is I should have known, but I didn't, from Douglas Kripe about this Digital Africa. I kind of knew it from the space community, but I think that would be a wonderful group to connect to also for the digital twinning, because space is an element of it, including in situ, and Africa is one of our focus areas. So it'll be great to see who's there and how we can make this connection. So sorry for the long answer, but it's a great question. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to get sort of moving ahead together.
Yes, I think you're totally right, and I really hope that Geo Blue Planet can be that place where all these different programs can come together for capacity building, for stakeholder engagement, and so on. And you almost make the digital twin ocean sound fun. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll move on to Gabrielle, and we're gonna, steal a couple of minutes so we can hear all of you guys. So Gabrielle, what process can be used to bring scientific communities together? And we're thinking about the chemists and the physicians, but also the biologists, the people working on biodiversity together around the transdisciplinary challenge that is ocean biodiversity conservation.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think some of the most important connections we need to make, and the ones that we're most focused on right now, are engaging those science communities with public and coastal communities, including, as I'm hearing is a theme across many of us, reaching out to indigenous and local leaders who know marine life best often and have that different type of traditional knowledge that we need to better incorporate into our kind of scientific exploration and understanding. And so that's a deeper engagement than we've done routinely in the past. But it's key to really building that truly global community that we're all talking about. And it seems that establishing that kind of dialogue, that kind of co-creation and mutual understanding will really result in incentivizing partnerships. Why should some of these stakeholders beyond our traditional science communities come and remain engaged with us? It's because the system and the products that we want to develop with them would be tailored to their needs, that, you know, for which we're building an understanding, and solve demonstrated problems that they have. So we're really trying to think a little bit outside the box, outside of our routines, considering what types of events and outreach would be most useful to engage this broader network, thinking about how we might use the UN Decade structures and regional focal groups to reach into some of the communities that we're talking about. I do see an opportunity among us here to consider this together. So that will be interesting to do as a follow-up, but really ensuring from the earliest planning stages that we're thinking a little bit differently about how we develop these approaches, what communities we're tapping into for new knowledge, and how we're engaging with users of marine and biodiversity information really at every level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll wrap it up with a question to Willy. How will the prediction produced by ForeSea, the GOUS Predict program, be integrated in the process of policy making regarding extreme events such as marine heat waves or something different affecting the economy and biodiversity alike?
Thanks, Audrey, for this example. There are actually many examples where GOUS Predict forecasts have environmental implications that extend to socioeconomics, ocean human health, designing or rebuilding coastal structures, etc. And all these have a connection to policy and management. The transformative aspect that is actually well aligned with the UN Ocean Decade vision is to go beyond our traditional ocean sciences. In GOUS Predict, we envision integrated coastal ocean forecasting systems that can give us the parameters required by stakeholders, like what is the expected impact on both ocean and human health from a specific hazard, or how should we change agricultural policy to control nutrient inputs from rivers that impact coastal water quality, or how should we change coastal building codes to address the predicted sea level change, and so on. So I see that stakeholder engagement and the GEO's vast network are two of the examples where the partnership with GeoBluePlanet is going to be valuable, and it will complement other relevant partnerships of GOUS Predict, especially with the Observing Co-Design program under GOUS that focuses on building the process, infrastructure, and the tools for co-design.
Thank you, Willy. So we are 3 minutes over time. I'm really sorry about this. I see that, someone from AquaWatch asked, how do we avoid all of us competing for the engagement of the same users? And I see that Frank reply. Can you reply orally, please, just in a minute, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, I think Mary poses a very important question, but it's not just engaging the same users or pinging the users from 10 different directions. And this is true for how do we work together in a different form that we've done before, as Gabriel said. It's about having whatever overlap we can find between each other. And if Geo and Blue Planet can help us with this, we will all benefit, and we will benefit the world. If we don't work together and if we work competing with each other, then we will not be effective. So I think we will all run ourselves into the ground.
Thank you. I think that that's really an important part. I'd say one thing that we have learned from engagement with stakeholders, particularly local communities that are based in small countries, like small island states, is that they're already fatigued with getting proposed projects in their areas. So I think that that's something we really need to be careful about. And the approach that we've been talking about is asking them what they want and need, and then from our side, knowing that we have the experts, then we can bring in the experts that can build the capacity for them in terms of what they're requesting versus trying to push things on there. So looking at the driver and then connecting to the scientists who are working on that.
Yes, Martin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So, Emily, along those lines, I mean, if I happen to be on the interim advisory group for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, so I know a little bit about the organization behind it. But what I'm just saying is not new to any of us, and we've discussed this also, some of us last week. The various programs that have been endorsed by the UN Decade have also been encouraged to come together and build out what they call communities of practice. Now, this is nothing new for the GEO community. You've been working with this concept of GEO communities of practice. At least that's where I heard it first from my GEO friends. But the Decade community says they are really encouraging us to do exactly, Emily, what you were saying, to come together in these communities of practice to, first of all, work together, but also to optimize our engagement. And as you said, I mean, when there's 6 programs almost asking from an outsider about the same thing, that doesn't look very organized, nor can it be impactful. So the first idea of these communities of practice is a very early thought thrown out to the community to take it up, is to organize them around 2 dimensions. One dimensions are these challenge areas that Doug reviewed for us. They're these 10 decadal challenges. So that's one dimension for this community of practice. And the other dimension of the communities of practice is about ocean basins. So North Atlantic, Southern Ocean, Indian Ocean, and alike. And that's just a proposal that is thrown out to us, the community. And I wonder whether, Audrey, we can, reflect on that a bit. If we wanted to do, say, a community of practice, let's say around ocean prediction, because that's called out. But there's also one on, as I said, the digital ocean is another one. How would we think of that from a GEO Blue Planet perspective? Is this something that we say, well, maybe we can support one of those community of practice as the GEO Blue Planet community and be a convener for that and do all the things, Emily, that you were kind of raising. So I wonder whether, rather than having a separate activity that GEO Blue Planet wants to bring to the community, whether we engage with the proposed actions, which is a community of practice, and say, and maybe offer to the programs, GEO Blue Planet would be very interested, maybe together with GOUS, I don't know, to take one of those, or maybe GOUS does one and GEO Blue Planet another one, to take them forward. I think those of us who have programs running would very much appreciate if somebody would support us in that motion, because we do know we need it, but we all kind of wonder, well, we're organizing our own program, and now also organizing a community of practice seems like a lot for us. So that's a thought that I would just like to register here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Martin. I think, because you're on the steering committee of GEO Blue Planet, but we are working on an internal working group on how GEO Blue Planet can support the UN Decade, and probably building a community of practice, not a regional one, because GEO Blue Planet is global, but a thematic one would be a really good idea. And I see that Emma's hand. Sorry again for going over time, but I think this conversation is really interesting and really, really important. So if you guys need to go to the plenary session, go ahead, but I'll give the floor to Emma first.
Thanks. I wasn't sure whether I should raise my hand because I was aware that we were running.
No, go for it. Of course.
I'll be very quick. So I think GOUS is thinking of trying to help and support, and having sort of some dialogues with the Decade to see how some additional resource could come forward to help support a community of practice, but that this might have not a solely GOUS, but a sort of an independent element to it. So it would also be very much connected to the Decade and the Decade's aims. So, but it would be very much supported by GOUS and connected into that community. So definitely, but I think it's very interesting that what Martin also mentioned, that if GEO has experience in communities of practice, I think that would be something that would be really interested to understand and share. Because the Decade has kind of accelerated many things all at once, and everybody's asking sort of similar questions. And I think we could all do with understanding some best practice and then moving forward with that as a good basis, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's a perfect transition, because I wanted to give the floor to Doug for concluding remarks, so he can answer to Emma and conclude the meeting here, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. Yes, the communities of practice have been a part of GEO for quite some time. So right now we have a fairly active water cycle community of practice. There's also a health community of practice that they both operate in a way that they try to bring together all of the stakeholders from the sources to the sinks of information and exchange ideas. So happy to chat about how this could apply in this particular situation. I need to go to the plenary because I'm supposed to be a panelist there, but I'll just conclude by saying that this has been a very good session. I really have enjoyed it. Going back to Mary Beth's comment, I guess I would hope that we don't see the ocean that we want as being a zero-sum game. In other words, some people win and some people lose. I would like to think that we have so many resources available, in terms of geospatial information, Earth observations, and analytical platforms, and so forth, that I think there's more than enough pie to go around. It's just what we need is to have some kind of way to bring these components together and talk in a non-binding, best efforts way, which is the way GEO works. And so I think that GEO has a neutral broker kind of role to play here to bring together, all of the things that we've been talking about and facilitate support for the Ocean Decade and other items, the Paris Agreement and the SDGs and so forth. So that's my thoughts here at the end, and I'm going to duck out now, but thank you all for participating, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes, thank you, Doug. Sorry about the extra 12 minutes. And
right.
yeah, I'll talk to you, all of you, very soon for sure. Thank you.
Thank you all. Very helpful discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.